Well, hello, welcome back to Tail 3 Cabins. It's a pretty blustery day outside right now. There's wind warnings going on, and I'm hoping that nothing falls on the pole barn while I'm out here, and hopefully you'll be able to hear me okay. Inside the car right now, it's okay. So what am I doing inside my truck? Well, my truck is a 2015 truck, and I've mentioned this point a few times before when I talked about my wife's car and technology. My wife got her Ford Escape back in 2012. It was October 2012. It was a 2013 model, and in it had Sync number 2. And at the time, it was just introduced Sync 2. I bought this truck in 2016, very early 2016. It's a 2015 model, and 4 years later, it still had Sync 2 in it, which is what is on here. And that bugged me when I first bought it because this technology was already 4 years old, and I'm going to hang on to this truck for another 10 years, making the technology 14 years old. And a lot of folks nowadays, they get a phone, they change their phone out every couple of years. It used to be 2 years, and I think now the average is about every 3 years. So to me, this technology is very similar to the phone's technology. You kind of want to keep up to date with this type of stuff because it is changing all the time. Since I bought this truck in 2016, actually a year later, Sync 3 came out. So I was kind of bummed out that I missed out on Sync 3. I looked into maybe getting the module updated and stuff like that way back when, and it was close to about $2,000 was your only option if you wanted to do that. And the dealerships weren't allowing it. You'd have to buy something aftermarket to try to keep it all Ford and everything. It was close to $2,000. So I just put that on the back burner. I have a little phone mount here that if we're doing something navigation wise, I keep my phone up here so it's in view and I can see what's going on outside the screen. But I've constantly been watching, and now I can jump to Sync 3 for about $450. I'm going to hang on to my truck probably for another couple years the way it's looking. So I felt that at least I could get rid of Sync 2, which is now 2012 and it's now 2024, 12 years old. I can at least come forward about 5, 6 years. Sync 3 just went out the window about a year and a half ago. They introduced Sync 4. Unfortunately, we bought my wife's Escape, and hers is a 2022, and that did not have the option for Sync 4. It was COVID going on. I think the whole year model got pushed and repeated to another year. So any changes got pushed back. So she's got Sync 3, and Sync 4 has just come out. So we're in the same boat with her car. I ended up buying a kit for this off of eBay. There's a couple places you go on Amazon. Now for reasonable price, and I paid $450, you can go from Sync 2 and jump up to Sync 3. It is not too terrible of a mod here, but I'm going to go over the steps, and maybe if you have a Ram or a Chevy and they have their own versions of technology here for your communications with the outside world, your music and all that stuff, satellite navigation, maybe there's an option out there for you too if you want to look into it. So maybe that'll spark an idea. If you have a Ford F150 like I do, this would certainly interest you if you're in the same boat as I am. So today what we're going to do is we're just going to go over the kit that I bought, and then we're going to try and install it. And then hopefully it's not going to be too difficult. It's going to be removing this cowl, taking out the old module here, changing some brackets over. There's a couple USB ports down below that need to be swapped out too. We'll try this whole process out. I'm a little anxious about doing it. I'm just wondering how my XM satellite is going to transfer over. I barely used a CD player on this, but I'm kind of curious if that's still going to work, how the XM satellite is going to transfer over, just if I'm going to lose any functionality and what kind of functionality I'm going to gain. So if you're kind of interested in this and want to see how this project ends up, stick around and check it out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to want to do is turn my key off. I'm going to want to disconnect the battery, because even though when you open the doors that this usually powers up, so you don't want any power accidentally going to this while you are swapping things out. All right, so next thing is on top here we need to take out the speaker grill, a couple screws. Now I messed with this for a little while, and I found that actually twisting the pry tool works a lot better than just trying to pry the grill out. As we get into this, this works for several models of Ford F150s. I happen to have a 2015. Now if you have a Chevy or a Dodge Ram, there are upgrades for those, and if you do a little research, you can either get OEM upgrades or you can get aftermarket upgrades. Some of them had where if you were going from the screen like I have, a smaller screen, they actually had an upgrade for a 12-inch screen on there, which was pretty cool. A little bit more expensive though. This particular package came with all the tools necessary to make the change, so it gave me this 7mm socket here, which was a little tight when it comes up against the windshield, but it was able to get out the necessary screws. Alright, so I probably didn't really need to take the speaker out, but you will need to disconnect the cable off the back of the speaker when you pull this tray out, and it might be easier to take the speaker out, disconnect the cable, and then I'm just going to put this speaker back in, screw it back in, so I don't lose any parts or anything inside the truck here, and then I should just be able to plug the cable back in once I reinsert this. 2 7mm here. Okay, so on the top here of the front of the panel, there are 2 7mm, and this will work with the supplied tool that came with it. The cowl around the infotainment system is basically just held in by clips once you get those 2 screws out. A little scary, but not too bad. Okay, there is one wire up here on the top that I think I'm going to disconnect, but leave everything else in here connected up. I ended up just leaving those 2 wires connected on the top, and it looks like I'm going to have enough room to slide it through to get it out. There are 3 screws on each side. The same tool will take out these screws also, and then the brackets that are holding the unit on will need to be removed and put on the new unit. Two cables that need to be taken out here, and I'm going to put the camera down so I can okay, so this is the Sync 2 unit. I just got it out. 2 cables were taken off the back here. They weren't too bad. They just unsnapped. These brackets here are going to have to get reused on the Sync 3, so I'll have to take a couple Phillips screw heads here, take those off, and then swap out the brackets. All right. So I did plug in, this is for a GPS antenna. So that is something new. That's something that I didn't have on the Sync 2. And then the other 2 connections that I took off here, this one here and that one there, we just hooked those back up. Swapping out the brackets was pretty easy also, and it also came with the necessary tool for that type of screw. Trying to be careful not to scratch the screen. If you're a little paranoid about that, you could probably disconnect the wires and remove this panel out of the way. Alright, so that's the main wire, and then the USB wire. Okay. All right, that's in place. Screws back in. I will say, if you have one of these little magnet tools, once the screws are loosened, it was easier to get those screws out. So if you have one of those, it might be helpful in I still have the protective cover on there until just before I put this back on. I'm going to leave it on, and hopefully I don't forget. These USB connections will have to be changed out, and there's a SD card if you notice there. That was for if you had the navigation system, you could load new maps with the SD card, but I didn't have the navigation system, but I am going to have it now. It'll be built into Sync 3. This is the replacement. It's just a simple USB connection, and where the SD card connection was, an adapter is provided, which is basically just going to supply a red and black wire, which creates power, so these plugs will be illuminated when you have your lights on. I'm reattaching the speaker wire on top, and then if you notice that cable or cord to the right, the gray, that is for the navigation antenna. And that can just lay basically anywhere as long as it's not going to bind with when you're putting any of the stuff back together. I'm going to go hook up the car battery. I'll be right back. Okay, I don't know if you got that glow when I put the battery back on. Nothing's happening. Up there it is when I open the door. Okay, that's good. Let me get a key out. Probably gonna have to be outside the pole barn if it's gonna update. I had a phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found. Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on your device. For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
News Radio, WTAM 1100. Good afternoon, I'm Tom Moore. This is the 3:30 report. We've got a high wind warning starting in a half an hour. It's until 1 o'clock Sunday morning for about 24 counties in northern Ohio.
All right, let's try the biggie here. I'm going to plug in my phone to a USB connection because that's how most CarPlay apps work. Alright, so that's the main reason I wanted to do this, was to get CarPlay on here.
Of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
There it is.
ZipRecruiter helps me find.
Hey Siri, what time is it?
It's 3:33 p.m.
Alright, the satellite works. All my favorites just showed up in the XM satellite, so that was good. We did take this on a trip to Tennessee, and I can tell you that all the functionality is still there. All the functionality with the buttons in my steering wheel work, the CD player work. Let me check real quick to see if the backup camera is going to work here. backup camera works. That was one other thing I was wondering, hoping that that was going to work. I don't think it gave me any more functionality. I always had the zoom button on there. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you. I got no relationship to this company or these modules or anything like that. It's something that I've been looking at since I first bought my truck, and it just seemed that it became affordable and maybe be a nice upgrade for me now. So I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you enjoy and subscribe to these videos. Click on that little bell when you want to know when a new one is coming out, and keep an eye on us. Take care, everybody. For another 10 years. If you want to enjoy a few of the backgrounds that I didn't use, while I reiterate that if you have a vehicle and the infotainment system is getting a little long in the tooth and you want to upgrade it, it's still very possible to do that. Do a little research. There's a lot of kits out there. A lot of them supply all the tools necessary for you to make that change, and it's not too terrible. There's a lot of videos out on YouTube also for your particular type of vehicle to help you along to make that change. I looked into maybe getting the module updated. Was your only option if you wanted to do that, and the dealerships weren't allowing it. You'd have to buy something aftermarket to try to keep it all Ford and everything. It was close to $2,000. So I just put that on the back burner. I have a little phone mount here that if we're doing something navigation-wise, I keep my phone up here so it's in view and I can see what's going on outside the screen. But I've constantly been watching, and now I can jump to Sync 3